AC's running, so audio's a bit blurry, but overall, I might as well do a step-by-step video of rewiring the Stryfe. Initially, I just swapped out the motors with another one from a spare Han Solo blaster or Jimmerso that I had, but it turns out it's the wiring itself that was burned out in this stock Stryfe. It's just going to be a stock rewire, so we're going to use a stock switch, stock motors, everything, just to show you how things are done, like, you know, step by step, hopefully. If my camera burns out, I will notice it. I have the selfie camera pointing this way, so that should help me out. So with that being said, this thing should be heated up by now. So first thing we're going to do is just wire up the leads. I know that these front leads here are positive, so I'm using blue for positive. Back leads here are negative, so I'm going to be using black wire for that. And so on and so forth. Alright. Check it to see if my soldering iron is hot enough. Normally you can tell once it's able to melt solder onto it. There we are, yep. This one is a bit used. I still need to find fresh tips. I already have myself a little cleaner, but I need to find fresh tips in order to truly bring this guy back up to speed and use. But for now, this is about as good as we can get. Let me just pull out a bit more solder. I use some rosin flux as well. It's a yellow paste that just helps bond the wires a lot more easily onto here. I'm not using any heat shrink. The dogs are barking, so sorry about that. But yeah, overall it's just a simple rewire. So as I said, we're starting out with the positive leads here. I'm currently getting these on. This tip is weak because of a bunch of use, so I'm just somewhat doing a cold solder, which is not recommended, but in my case, I have next to no other choice because, as I said, this thing's been used. I need to find fresh chips fast. So it is about as best as I can do here. Alright, so that should be wrapped up there. Normally, for soldering, you'd want to put the iron under the wire and put the solder over it. I'm trying my best to do that, but at times it just doesn't work because, as I said, I just haven't taken good care of my soldering tips. I'm still learning as we go along here. There we go. Now it's starting to silver up and it's starting to bond well. Just gotta put a bit more on here and tuck it down under so it could connect better. There we are. Positive lead is soldered on. From there, we're just gonna go as fast as I can here. I don't have much time. I have like 2 hours before work, so I gotta speed myself up as well. So there we go. The positive lead is in fact wired on. Then we just grab the negative lead. There we are. To give you a bit of a closer look, if you can zoom in, you can see those like bulges of yellow. That's the flux. It helps bond better. So with that being said, let's quickly move on over to the negative lead. Get this guy set up and adjusted. Ugh. Your helping hands will get hot, or whatever tool you're using to hold them, so just be careful with that. I've gotten somewhat used to it. Obviously though, like the soldering iron will burn you if you let it touch bare skin, but for now, the hot helping hands is not much of an issue. I'm just trying to flex these guys downwards. Alright, there we go, that should be good enough. Gonna give this guy a bit of a cleanup. Alright, now we're gonna move on to the negative leads. Yet again, in my case, weak tips, so I'm just gonna lie some on here and have it go from under. Rosin flux will jump at times, so be careful when it touches your skin. It will burn, but it won't leave a bad mark unless if you flat out poured hot rosin flux onto your skin. Alright, we have made a connection there. I'm just going to boil it from under, spread it around, so I could get a better connection onto the wire. Normally though, with modded motors, this would be way easier because the tabs are on top, so you can literally snake the wire through the holes on the motor pegs and then just wire it on like that for a clean fit. But since these are stock motors I'm working with, it is a bit of a challenge to make things fit. Even the rival motors, they have the pegs on top. But since we don't have that luxury, we'll make do with what we have here. The smell is not favorable, but then again, it's better than having lead flux or lead what's it called, solder, which would be toxic. I'm using lead free. These usually come with like the $10 soldering tools that Walmart sells, so it's pretty nice that you get a free tube of this every time you purchase one of those, but they're not as long lasting as this $20 welder one. I still need to find new tips for it. They are sold online, so I'll be poking around there for any answers. Alright, in the meanwhile, I'm going to stop the video here because at that point we have our leads soldered on. From here now, I'm just going to make the measurements necessary for the wires to go to the negative terminal on the negative lead, and to go from the positive terminals to, of course, the COM, and then from the COM to the normally opened, all the way back to the positive lead of the battery tray. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Alrighty then, so we are back over here. I made the measurements for the negative lead because at this point this guy's just going straight to the negative terminal of the battery tray. So yeah, what we're gonna do, I took off the top motor cover. It's just easy, it's held down by 2 clips, so you just pull it and take it off. But yeah, what we're gonna do here is basically solder this onto the top part, because I'm showing you this thing upside down. When you reverse it, flip it over, the wires, the top part connections will be up here in this upper part of the shell, which will make it easier to snake through the channel and back here to the tray and the respective switches. So yeah, I'm just letting my soldering iron reheat a bit more. I do turn it off every now and then just to let it cool down and not, you know, burn my house down. So there we go. So now that I have this guy lined up well enough, let me just adjust it. Final adjustments here. There we go. It's all ready to be soldered on to the negative leads and go straight to the battery tray. Just making sure that my soldering iron is hot enough to melt the solder. I usually just press it against there and then just have it tinted as well. There is a thing known as tinning your wires, but as I said, with how weak this point is that I have right now, it's not really possible to do on my end. Alright. I'm going to try and be careful not to get this onto the metal body of the motors like you would with any other flywheel motor, because from there, you know, the solder could negatively react to the body and just fry up the shell of the motor itself. You don't want that happening. I mean, getting some on the plastic is alright, but as long as it's not on the metal itself, you should be good. Or at least the plastic caps of these. For modern motors, they're all like metal shells, so you really don't want to get it anywhere on there except for the terminals they were designed for. There we go. It should be soldered on to the negative leads, and then from there we can take this guy straight on over to the negative side of the battery tray. I'll actually move my helping hands over here just to get a better grip. Obviously it's gonna be a bit hot, so spicy. Alright, gonna move this guy down over here, move the barrel attachment off to the side, and now we're gonna solder on to the negative lead of the battery terminal. There we are. Should be ready to plug in. Well, not plug in with batteries, but you know what I mean. Gonna let it conjoin with the solder that's already been on the tray. There is that distinct smell of Chinese solder that came straight from the factories, which I don't like, but it's whatever. At least it's not large quantities of it. And there we go. The negative terminals, the negative leads of the blaster are complete. I'll just let this guy cool down a bit, and then I'll make the measurements for the positive pathway, which of course, as I said, will go from the positive terminals to the COM terminal of the switch, which is this top closer portion, and then from the normally open, which is this bottom tab, all the way back to the battery tray. A quick thing I want to show you guys about that I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video is wire stripping. Obviously, you can't solder on these plastic tips with the wire copper casing inside to the point, so you're gonna have to use wire strippers. This one right here is numbered, so you'll find the 18 on the right side, or at least in my terms, the right side over here where it says stranded. So from there, you just take this, you clamp it down in the 18 area. I should probably turn off my iron for a bit to let it cool down and get ready for the final joints, but yeah. Put it through the 18. For this one, you just clamp it in, give it a bit of a spin and a twist, and eventually it should pop off, and it will show you. It's tough to see on the camera here, but yeah, there you go. There's a bit of copper right there. It's not focusing, but I'd much rather have it focus on the Stryfe. But yeah, there it is, the little copper ends which are needed, which are actually what you solder on and not, you know, the plastic tips. So now you know about stripping wires, getting it ready to solder on. I always dip it inside of the flux paste just to obviously give it a better connection, just like you would putting Teflon tape or silicone grease or any sort of grease onto plastic parts or O-rings of a springer just to get a better air seal. It's basically what rosin flux does for, you know, soldering. So I'm just gonna tip these guys in. Get this hair off. I'm not sure where it came from, but I don't want it. There we go. And there we go. So we'll start off going from the flywheel cage itself. So we'll solder on the final joints of this guy. Pretty straightforward, just like the negative one. And then from there, we'll flip the cage over and snake it all the way down to the COM terminal of the stock switch, which is the top one right here, nearest to you, the camera. You just get this guy well aligned. There we go. Alright. Plug this guy back in. I use a sponge, which is a bit wet, in order to just... Let me show you it. There we go. I use a sponge. Right now it's getting a bit dry, so I'm going to wet it again. Mainly just to offset the amount of heat coming out. And just cool it down a tad bit so that it won't burn the plastic or the wire. So hang on. Alright, we're back. It's moist. So with that being said, this should be heated up again and ready to go. Maybe just, obviously, you know, the solder test, if it can melt it. Yes, it can. Alright, just gonna let it tin the tip a bit more. You kind of want to keep on tinning the tip of your soldering iron so that it won't be the raw metal touching it against the wire, but rather the soldered tip. Keep it a bit of a shine to just help out with a better connection, as always. That's kind of the goal of soldering. You want the best connection possible for the wires and the terminals, switches, motors, what have you. I usually use a bit of cold solder to just create a hard shell as well. It's optional, but it can work. Heat shrink is the best thing you could use. You literally throw it onto the wire and then melt it down with either the solder tip itself or with, you know, a heat gun or something. But for now, I'm not using heat shrink since I just want to show the pure rewiring process. And plus, this is like a throwaway Stryfe. If it burns out or something else goes wrong, I could care less. I have my battle camo Stryfe, which is a lot more dedicated to, you know, modding. Alright, and with that being said, we are done with the motor leads. So the flywheel heart is all revved up, or not revved up, but, you know, soldered into place. We could flip it over. The wire channel will be a bit tough to squeeze back on since these wires are 18 gauge and are thicker than the toy grade ones that the Stryfe came with, but you can make it fit. You can make things work. Alright. So we're snaking it through here. I usually snake it under the whole trigger system. There we are, all the way down to here, and then just give it a hard turn. I'd use my helping hands for this part as well, so I'll move these over here. Oh, that's hot. But yeah, take this guy and just clamp it down there just for extra support, and it's ready to solder on. I'm not sure how long this video is taking, but hey, I'm showing you step by step what I'm thinking through and the tools I'm working with, which is not ideal. As I said, this thing is used, so I need to switch it out fast. But it's all I've got right now to show you, because knowledge is important, people. So don't make the mistakes I make sometimes, but at the same time, you know, as long as you learn the simple process. There we go. This was an easy bond to the terminal. There we go. Yeah, that soldered on easily to the terminal, but yeah. Now this thing is wired up to the COM terminal of this switch. And then from there, of course, the final step will be from the normally open, which is this bottom one right here, all the way back to the battery tray. I already have that wire measured and cut out, so we'll just snake it through and get this done. Oop, move the camera. Sorry about that, guys. Let's just rest this guy on top of here. Let me move the camera. There we go, a bit more of a better view. You know, my belly's right here. Alright, let's solder this into place. Alright, I melted a bit of the plastic. I just realized that, so... But I mean, it's not detrimental. It's not going to affect the connection. So there we go, we're done with soldering from the switch. The final step, of course, is just snaking the wire over to the positive terminal of the battery tray. Not sure how long this video has been running, probably half an hour now. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but still, I want to show everything and not skip a beat. In the name of education. I'm actually going to move my soldering iron a bit to the back because I feel like I'm going to like rub my palm against it and that's going to hurt. I don't want injuries before work, man. This one's a bit tough to fit into, but yeah. I know, like, was it like Lowe's and Home Depot, they have full-on soldering kits that come with the flux, the solder, and the iron, all for like a bundle of like $25 to $30. So if you guys need your own kits, they sell them all ready to go. Alright, and with that, the positive wire is touching the positive terminal and it is ready to be finished up. So as always, a bit of solder to just tin the tip of our iron. Right, and with that, it should be wired on to the positive lead now. I melted a bit of the wire itself. That was a mistake on my end. I'm doing this a bit rushed. And done. Normally you put on heat shrink to protect those kinds of things. Not this time around. But yeah, overall our wiring should be complete. Let me go ahead and shut off my iron and I'll show you guys a better look. Alright, so beneath here, of course, we have ourselves our positive and negative leads all soldered up. The positive leads on the front, negative on the back. From there, of course, we snake it under the wire channel. It's going to be a tight squeeze, but it can fit. Snake the positive one straight to the negative, or the negative one straight to the negative battery terminal. So that's done with. Positive one goes all the way on down here to the COM terminal of the switch, and then you jump down here from the normally open of the switch all the way back up to the battery tray. So there's a simple look inside the Stryfe. Let's button it back up and see if it revs up and works now. The motors sound like they've had better days, but overall this video was to give you guys a look into how to do the Stryfe. You'll probably do it better with more professionalism than I am because I'm running short on time here. But apart from that, this has been Spartan. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at how I did it step by step. And hopefully you'll do a better job at soldering these leads and whatnot than I did right now. Alright, have a good day.